My name is Drew Bentley. Thanks for joining me. Today we're going to take a look at how to start playing the blues. If you don't know how to play the blues yet, this will be a great introduction for you to get into playing it. And we will cover how to start to learn how the blues works, play some simple chord changes, learn how to do it with some power chords and then with some chords themselves, how to do some chugging with the chords, and then we're going to get into some improvisation as well, and how to start playing guitar solos over the chords. So let's start at the very beginning here, the 12-bar blues. So what happens here is we have 12 measures. It's called a 12-bar blues. I don't think a 12-measure blues would have sounded too cool. Hey man, let's play the 12-measure blues, right? So it's 12 bars, and it's a song form with 12 bars. We have a 1 chord, a 4 chord, and a 5 chord in the key. So in the key of A, which is where our example is going to be, we have the key of A, which is going to be an A7 chord. And then we have this D7 chord for the 4 chord and E7 for the 5 chord. So what we're going to do is we're going to do this with one string first with quarter notes just to kind of get our feet wet. So you can play this right off the bat. If it's your very first day playing the guitar, you could probably play this. I'll play the A string. Strings are Eddie, 8, Dynamite, Goodbye, Eddie. We'll play the A string first, and we're going to play this with quarter notes. We're going to do it for 4 measures like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we're going to switch to the D chord, or sorry, the D string, because it's the 4 chord in the key. A, B, C, D. It's actually A, C sharp, D, but whatever. A, B, C, D. It's the 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then back to A again. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And now we're going to go to the E string. A, B, C, D, E. It's actually a C sharp. That has to do with how many sharps are in the key, but E is the 5. So A is 1, D is 4, and E is 5. If you kind of count up alphabetically. So the E string is 5, 2, 3, 4, back to the D string, and back to the A string for 2 more entire measures. So that's 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and D is string, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and A string, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and E string, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. Okay, that's pretty simple, right? So now let's try 2 strings. We're going to play the A string plus the 2nd fret of the D string for this little power chord like this. It's a power chord. For the D chord, we'll do the same thing. We're just going to take our 1 finger, move it 1 string closer to the floor, and do this. And then for the E chord, E power chord, it's E5, which is a power chord. We'll put our 1st finger on the 2nd fret of the A string this time and do this. So we have 1, 4, 5, 1. Sounds like a lot of songs, right? So that's a whole bunch of songs of 1, 4, 5, 1. You can actually start to hear how that works now and how many songs actually do this. Okay, so again, I'm going to go through these, what I call the Chuck Berry changes. 1 chord for 4 measures. Chuck Berry's songs had relatively easy chord changes. It's not a slight for Chuck Berry, it's just the way it was. And then we have the 4 chord, and back to the 1 chord. And his songs, a lot of times would go 5, and then 4, and then back to 1. And that's it. That's simple. So I'm going to do that with 2 strings now, doing quarter notes. 1, 2, 3, and 4. 1, 2, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4. I move up to the D power chord, back to A again, and 1, and 2, and 3, and 4, and E, and 2, and 3, and 4, and D, and 2, and 3, and 4, and A, and 2, and 3, and 4, and A, and 2, and 3, and 4. Again, it's just these 2 strings. This, then this, then this, back to this. So. Okay, So now once we can do this with 2 strings, we're going to try this whole chord. Here's an A7 chord. Looks like this. It's open A string, 2 D2, open G, 3rd finger's on B2, and then D7, it looks like this. It looks like a D chord. I call it the backwards triangle. D looks like this. It's a reciprocal of D. It's kind of the mirror image of D. You have 2 G2, 1 B1, and 3 hot E2. Back to A7 again. And then E7 is open low E string, 2 A2, open D, 1 G1, open B, and open high E. That's your E7 chord. So we can play this with quarter notes as well. Okay, so that kind of starts to sound like a lot of songs, doesn't it? If I do something a little more fancy with my fingers, kind of pluck the strings. I'm playing the same chords, it's adding a little bit of spice to it. Okay, so we've kind of heard that our whole life. These are 7th chords. They're called dominant 7th chords, right? So what is a dominant 7th chord? There's a lesson on the channel right here that will teach you what a dominant 7th chord actually means. It's important for the blues. And while we are at it, here are a couple more lessons. This is the first one of another blues lesson on the channel where I go over the same sort of information from an earlier lesson if you want to take a look at that for some supplemental work from what we're doing right now on how to play the blues. Okay, so now we've done this with these open chords, right? And we've kind of got some blues going on with that. The next thing we want to do is we want to start to do a chug. So what is a chug? Well, first of all, we have to learn how to palm mute. You take the palm of your hand right here, and you put that right where the bridge meets the strings. It goes right in this spot. You're actually touching the strings and the bridge at the same time. And you get what I call a thunk-a-dunk-a sound like this. So, I mean, I've been laughed at for this before. You don't want thwap-a-dappa. Thwap-a-dappa. We want thunk-a-dunk-a. Right? Sounds like thunk-a-dunk-a. Versus thwap-a-dappa, thwap-a-dappa-dap. Okay, so once we get established that, we're going to play the same little form here of the A string and the D string, these 2 notes together, this little interval of a perfect 5th. But then we're going to add our 3rd finger to the 4th fret of D after that, like this. Again, I'm strumming just 2 strings, the A string and the D string. So this is probably what John Lennon and Paul McCartney were doing the very first day they got together whenever they formed the Quarrymen. They probably got together and said, okay, all right, mate, let's play these 2 things right. And they just did this. That's all they did. Because that's kind of like the entry point. That's what's so great about playing the blues. If you don't know how to play anything yet, you can sit down with some people that just start playing just like you did, and you have some commonality. You can play them together. Like you can find a common ground. But even when you become a more advanced player, if you go to jam sessions, you can find common ground by playing the blues. The blues is a great communal thing to do. So we have this note and this note, and that. And what we're going to do is we're going to go like this. So I like to call this off, off, on, on. Off, off, on, on. So it's 2, 2, 4, 4. I'm going 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and off, off, on, off, on. Again, I'm going to do this for 4 measures. 1 and 2 and 3 and switch to this one. Now the beauty of doing this in this key is, again, we can hop up a perfect 4th to the next string and just everything kind of shifts this way, and then the D chord's like this. Back to A again. So it's pretty simple because it's the same thing. Now we're going to go into E this time. We're going to jump down a perfect 4th here, up to D, back to A, stay on A. Again, I call these the Chuck Berry changes, like Johnny B. Good. It's 1 chord for 4 measures. 4 chord, 1 chord, 5 chord, actually, he doesn't even go to the 4 chord in that song. He goes from 5 back to 1. So very simple changes here at first. We're not going to worry about anything fancy. One of the things that makes the blues interesting is that when you change your chords around and get a little fancier with the chord changes, those are some of the things that set some blues songs apart from other blues songs and make them better. That's where we kind of find the distinction between blues songs. Do we go to the 4 chord or do we stay on the 1 chord? Do we add the 5 before we go to the 4? Is there a turnaround? We'll get to that in a minute. The turnaround's coming up next. But basically what we're doing right now is simply playing 1 chord for 4 measures, the 4 chord for the next 2, then the 1 chord, then the 5. And in this instance, we're going 5 down to 4 and then down to 1. So it's 1, 1, 1, 1, 4, 4, 1, 1, 5, 4, 1, 1 for a total of 12 measures. 1 chord is the A, 4 chord is D, E is the 5 chord. So it's really simple. If you count up A, B, C, D. It's not actually C, it's C sharp with a circle of fifths, but that's okay. A, B, C, D is 4, and E is 5. 1, 4, 5. These are called the primary chords in the key. And that's really important to learn, and that's how a major key works. If you don't understand that, there's a lesson on the channel right here about how a major key works, and you can learn about primary chords and secondary chords and sort of the way these all work together. But right now it's 1, 4, 5. That's where we're staying. So we're going to go off, off, on. Switch. 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 Okay, so that's 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and first we did the open chords. And now we're doing these chugs by palm muting and playing this riff like this. Now the next thing we're going to introduce is something called a fast change blues. Sometimes we play the 1 chord for the first measure, then we jump right into the 4 chord for the second measure, and back to the 1 chord again. It's going to sound a little different if I go. And then into the 4 chord. Okay, so in that case, I want 1, 4, 1, 1, okay? So now, the next thing we're going to talk about here, the 5 chord at the end in the key of A. So if I go 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, when I get to the end, instead of going 5, 5, 4 to 1, I'm going to play 5 at the very end. It's going to sound like this. 4. Hear that? I want 5 at the end. This time I'll do the fast change blues the same way. I'll go 1, 4, 1, 1, and then 4, 4, 1, 1, 5, 4, 1, 5. 1, 4, 1, 1, 4, 4, 1, 1, 5, 4, 1, 5. Now don't get intimidated by all these numbers. The more you do this, it's going to become ingrained in you. You'll be able to play the blues in your sleep. This will become so second nature for you. It's a really easy format to play once you start to get the hang of it. It's kind of the entry fee is really easy with the blues. I mean, you can play the blues kind of your very first day. If this is the first time you ever played a guitar, right now, you can follow along with these strings, play the open strings, and play the blues. So I'll go 1, 4, 1, 1, the fast change blues at the beginning, and I'll throw a 5 chord at the end. That was kind of cool. Now the next thing we're going to talk about is something called the turnaround. So the turnaround is what takes this sort of monotonous chord progression that keeps doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, and allows you to turn it around and put you back at the beginning again. There's turnarounds in music like crazy, not just in the blues, but there's turnarounds all over music. It's a very common thing to turn a song around. So what I'm going to do here is do this turnaround. Now there's lots of options. This is a pretty standard one. I'm going to play this chord, this chord, this chord, this chord, and into this chord that looks like an F, but up higher. What I'm doing is I'm playing diminished chord, looks like this, and then I'm going to go 1 fret lower, and 1 fret lower, and then I'm going to play this chord, again it looks like an F chord. So D7, G6, B5, high E5. Now you can play this same thing by playing just 2 strings like this. So I play the same thing, but instead of playing 4 strings, I'm playing just 2. Now if you play 2 strings together, by the way, and they're on top of each other like this in a vertical sense, use your 2nd and 3rd finger. That's the proper form. So I go like if I play, it's a 2nd and 3rd finger. Keep that in mind. So what I'm doing is I'm doing the same outline as this, but I'm going to play it like this 2 strings. I could also do 3 strings. Looks just like the D7 chord was down here. Or I could do that by, I could change my picking order. Turnarounds are fun, and there's hundreds of ways you could turn a song around, and they're really exciting. The more turnarounds you learn, it's like really neat because it spices up your songs, right? So I'm doing this basic turnaround, and the turnaround takes place of the last 2 measures. So when I go 5, if I'm going 5 to 4, I'm going to hit the 1 chord for 1 beat. Then I'm going to go. To finish the turnaround, I'm going to play A5 to A6 and play this E7 chord. And this looks like a C chord. If you add your little finger, you get C7. My little finger's on G3. And move up to C sharp 7, and then D, and then D sharp, and then E. And there's E7 chord. So that's basically a C form. If you don't know the chords on the guitar neck that well yet, take a look at the lesson channel on the channel right here about learning about the caged system. It will talk about how all the chords work for triads up the guitar neck, and there's an 8-video series on the channel, 8 videos at this point, about the caged system, and that'll help you to understand why that is a C chord. The turnaround into the end of this with the chugs. That's why I did a slow change blues. I'll do this one. Pretty cool, right? So now the next thing we're going to talk about is we're going to add our swing feel into our strums. We'll go back to our open strums again, but this time we're going to add some swing. So swing is kind of the same feel for like a jazz tune. That's a swing feel, and it's going to be like a triplet, but you're like playing the first and the last of the triplet. So it's trippa, la, trippa, la, trippa, la. I like to say ba, hoo, ba, hoo, ba, hoo. I think that's what Joe Negri told me to do in the lessons, is to go ba, hoo, ba, hoo. That's the way he feels it. So sometimes I like to say would you, could you, 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 would you? So much like that, we're going to swing this blues song as well. Okay, so if I go, so could you, would you, could you, back to the 4 chord again, the 1 chord, 4 chord, 5 chord, and then 1. So basically strumming these chords. Now if you can't dampen in between, that's okay. That's kind of a tricky thing to do. It's called comping. You notice my little finger has a mind of its own. If I play up here, I'm going to dampen by just letting go of the strings. And then I can just kind of cover them like that. If you don't know how to do that, there's a video on the channel right here about funky guitar rhythms, and it talks about the 3 techniques for dampening with your left hand: the choke, the chick, and the chang. The choke, chick, and chang. The video will help you with that, to kind of learn how to do that. It's a little easier to do it actually further up the neck. Oddly enough, it seems like that's kind of counterintuitive, but this is harder down here because you kind of have to collapse your hand, and then you kind of have to fold and collapse and cover, and sometimes the right hand assists as well. It's important to learn how to do that though, because like, for example, if I play this D flat, major 7, or A flat, major 7, or minor 7, or Don 7, whatever, it's going to sound what I call like a donkey chord because it's not in concert with the open strings. The key to the open strings is an E minor 11 chord, so it sounds good with your G's, your C's, your D's. All the chords of the K system sound great with open strings. This will sound like a donkey. Yee-haw, yee-haw. Here too, yee-haw, yee-haw. Right, so much further away from the open strings. So we have to learn how to dampen, but if you don't want to dampen this, and you can't quite do that yet, you can just strum the chords like this. Not dampening at all, just letting the strings ring out. I'm trying to swing when I do these chords. Then I'm going to hit the 5 chord next. 4 chord. It sounds really messy though, doesn't it? 1, turn around. So here's another video on the channel right here about 7 ways to sound better when you play the guitar. That will also help you learn to clean that up so it doesn't sound like when you're playing. You'll notice when I didn't dampen anything, it didn't really sound so great. It sounded like a bunch of noise. So I probably won't do that again anytime soon, but if you can't quite dampen yet, you can still play the open strings and learn how to play the blues like that. So that's okay. Now this time we're going to add the pinky to our chug. So we're going to do this chug, the off, off, on thing I was talking about. Off, off, on. But I'm going to add this guy up here like this. So you're getting your little finger involved. If your little finger is not that strong right now, it's pretty weak. Here's a video on the channel right here with 3 all-time great riffs that include your little finger. So exercises in a musical way, because it's not just like purely an exercise, but they're actually riffs that sound cool, where you can learn how to utilize your little finger and get that back kind of into the game and get some strength and dexterity with your little finger, because eventually you're going to want to use that little finger for everything you play as well. It should be equally as used as the other ones. So I'm going to go 2, 2, 4, 4, 5, 5, 4, 4. And I'm going to count 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and I'll stay with the 1 chord for the first 4 measures and I'm kind of swinging a little bit, right? And I'm going to go to the 4 chord. Back to 1. 5. 4. Turn around. There's a whole lot of songs that do that riff, like this 1, 4, 5 thing, rock and roll from Led Zeppelin does it. Call Me the Breeze, that John Cale song, which was done by J.J. Cale, which was done by Leonard Skinner to make that song famous. There's a whole bunch of songs that do this kind of thing. So that's important to learn how to get your little finger involved. I'll do this very slowly for you. Again, I'm just doing the A string and the D string for that power chord 2-string chug. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and switch. And switch. And switch. Turn around. And again, you could do this. You could go, or different variations from playing these diminished chords. Remember, it's this note and this note, this note and this note. To this. That's really kind of fun. And then I went do, do, E7. Okay, so you can kind of just noodle around with the blues and play some, really slow little pretty things. It sounds nice too. So the next thing we're going to talk about here is how do we do this further up the neck. So like I mentioned Chuck Berry, and we did some Johnny B. Goode. So this chord right here, like this A7 chord, can be accomplished by playing this E form on the 5th fret. It's a full bar chord, including all of the strings, so it's pretty tricky in this sense. But if we look at E7 like this, I switch fingers to my 2nd and 3rd finger. Then I have F7, F sharp 7, G7, G sharp 7 to A7. And there it is. So I could go, the strumming aspect of this first, I could strum this first before I do these what I call rock and roll chugs. We're going to play the D7 chord like this time. So it's going to be an A7. There's your A7. What we're going to do is use the next fingers in line. So instead of being the 2nd and 3rd finger, we'll use the 3rd and 4th fingers. 1 fret higher, A sharp 7, B7, C7, C sharp 7, D7. However, we're not going to play that. You properly should do this. Nobody really ever does that. They kind of just do this 2-string power chord version. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to kind of stick with tradition here. But realistically, it's that if you were kind of doing the fancy version. Let's go ahead and strum these chords first. We have A7 for the 1 chord, D7, E7. Fast change blues. And switch. And switch. And switch. Okay, so now let's go ahead and do this with the Chuck Berry rock and roll chug is what I call this. So the same thing we did here, we're going to do it up here on the 5th fret, and we're going to reach out to this note. I know that's a bit of a stretch, right? And if you can't quite do that yet, the trick is to start way higher. Try the 10th fret first, and then the 9th fret, and then the 8th fret, and you can kind of like work your way up to this down here. Some songs are actually down here. Believe it or not, that's kind of crazy. This is done in thousands and thousands, if not millions of songs as well, that do this like. A very, very common sound, but we're going to have to learn to do it because it's a big part of the vocabulary of doing this type of guitar playing. What we're going to do is this. There's our A7 chord. We're going to chug like this. Four chord. Back to 1. 5. 4. 1. Again, I'm taking a liberty to not throw the turnaround in or to change the turnaround or adjust the turnaround. You can do whatever you want to with that. It kind of gets really fun because you have a lot of freedom when it comes to the turnaround or actually all this stuff. So once we can do this, you can feel it coming, right? What am I going to ask you to do? I'm going to ask you to go 1 fret further. So the song's like, right? Tush goes. A lot of movement. That little finger, right? So I'm going to try this. We're going to go. So if that's too much of a stretch, let's go ahead and do that. Take a departure here for a moment. Go to the 8th fret, and we'll do the 8th fret. Stretch it to this from the 12th to the 13th. So that's something to work up towards too, because some songs will demand that of you. It's not as common maybe as it would be to just do this. But I have seen plenty of experiences where you can do this. Happens though that the flat 7 is here on the chord for here, so you can kind of get away with it. In a way too, so that's something to consider as well. I just wanted to throw that out there because you might have to do that someday. So there's lots of lessons on this channel about soloing with the blues. If you've never played any soloing at all, there's a lesson on the channel right here about the very first soloing experience with the pentatonic scale. You want to take a look at that video if you've never done any of this before. And if you have and you want to take it a bit further, here's a lesson right here on how to start to play the same type of thing but use the right notes to make it sound better over these dominant chords. There's a couple videos on the channel actually about that same topic, about playing over dominant blues. Let's take a look at what we're going to do here for playing over these changes though. We're playing in the key of A, so we're going to simply play the A minor pentatonic scale. You should learn how to play all 5 positions of the minor pentatonic scale. There's a lesson on this channel showing you all 5 positions of the pentatonic scale. It's in the key of E on the channel. To play it in A, just go from the 12th fret, start on the 5th fret, and then all the positions will line up the same way. So this is something you should learn. Every guitar player needs to know how to play the pentatonic scale. The pentatonic scale is our bread and butter when it comes to playing guitar. It's sort of our workhorse, if you will. What I'm going to do is I'm going to play on the looper here on my Fractal Audio FM9, and I'm going to try to add some soloing into this and see how it goes. On the looper I have the strumming thing going on, and then I have the chugging thing going on. So it strums and then it chugs. And I'm going to kind of play some really simple phrases over this and kind of tie things together for you. So if you've never played the blues before, now you've got some idea how to play the rhythm. So just kind of touch upon a little bit how you can start to solo with it too. And then you can go out with your friends and have a jam session and play the guitar like right now and play the blues right away. That's what's so great about this. Like, you can get into blues playing almost immediately and start to enjoy doing it. So here's the backing track playing. I'm using a tweed amp, an old-fashioned tweed amp, and it's an F8 tweed sound. Very old-timey Fender amp sound, little teeny 8-inch speaker. It sounds really kind of boxy in a way, kind of a boxy sound. I think it sounds pretty cool though, so here we go. So what I'm doing here is I'm playing over the blues. I'm expressing myself by jamming on the blues, and it's really a fun thing to do. I'm going to play this time with just the pentatonic scale, nothing fancy going on. I'm going to try to create some call and response riffs. I'm going to play a riff, and then I'm going to answer it. So like, how was your day? Well, you know, I got a flat tire and it was pretty crappy, so actually not so good. Really sorry to hear that, so let's play some blues. Right? So I'm sure flat tire is a flat tire blues. I got a flat tire! And it kind of sucks. No, seriously though, Wynton Marsalis had said that the blues is like getting a vaccination. You get a little bit of the disease to take care of the whole disease. I think that's the best explanation I've heard. The blues is very cathartic. It's very holistic. It feels good to get it out of your system. So I'm going to kind of play some call and response. I'm going to say like, hey dude, sorry to hear that you didn't get your check in the mail yet. That's okay, I don't need money to pay my electric bill. They're just going to let me slide. Because I can live for free on my good looks. Good luck with that. Better get a job. So, here we go. Question, answer. Question. I kind of answered that question. Question. Another question. Answer. Question. Answer. Question. Like, here we go again. Question. Okay, so a simple question. Answer. Question. Question. So, if you don't know how to bend the strings yet, you can find a video on the channel about how to bend properly as well. There's also a video, like I was saying, about how to get these special little nuances of these notes. Use my fingers there for that. Plucking it, it kind of sounds good to go. It sounds like a cat. Vibrato, so you can really express yourself with the blues, right? Okay, so that's the idea, how you can start to solo on the blues and do call and response and express yourself and kind of get out your frustrations of the day. Well, hopefully you had a lot of fun today taking a look at how to start playing the blues. You can take these principles and go to a jam session and start to learn to play with some friends right away. And I would recommend getting into learning as many standard blues songs as you can, because every time you learn a new blues song, you learn a new trick, you learn a new technique, you learn a new approach, a new voice, a new style that somebody has incorporated into the blues. This is definitely a hand-me-down situation. You're taking what somebody else has done and then you're adding your own thing to that, and it goes on and on and on. So keep learning songs. I can't express enough to keep learning songs, but these fundamental blues ideas from today's lesson will take you a really long way, where you can start to play with some people. If you've never been in a band before, you could get into a band using these ideas we were doing today. Try it in different keys. Don't just stay in the key of A, but kind of float around the circle of fifths or a circle of fourths, if you will, and start to learn how to play this in different keys. And you'll start to recognize this 12-bar blues format, and you're going to internalize it, and you'll never forget it. It'll be so easy. It's like riding a bike or driving your car or something. You just kind of have it ingrained in your mind that you can play the blues, and you'll just kind of have it, and you're not going to lose it, because once you've got it, then you've got it, and it's a great thing to do for your life, actually. If you're ever having a bad day, I had a student once, he was 11 years old, and the first lesson he asked me, I ever met this guy, and he's still my friend today. I said, Drew, do you ever play the guitar when you're having a bad day, when you're feeling sad? Do you ever play the guitar when you're feeling sad? And I thought, wow, this kid's going to be really good at guitar, because he gets it. He gets the fact that we can kind of cleanse ourselves with playing the instrument, and the blues is one of those things that really does that for you. All right, so thank you so much. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe to the channel. Keep watching out for the videos. I do these live streams after I teach lessons at night on the weekdays between Monday and Thursday. Generally, like twice a week, I'll hop on sometime around 9:30 or 10 o'clock and do a live stream. So keep an eye out for that, and keep practicing, and I'll see you at the next lesson.